Welcome to From the Driver's Seat, an Averitt podcast for all Averitt associates to keep up with news and information across our network. Make sure to subscribe on your preferred podcasting app so you'll be sure to be notified the moment a new episode drops. And now, Director of Driver Services and hosting From the Driver's Seat, David Broyles.
Hey everybody, it's David Broyles. Got a great podcast for y'all today, and looking forward to it today. Got some great guests, a lot of information. I think it's some good stuff that y'all need to learn about. It's got to do with our Driver Development Center. Years ago, it was back in school, finishing school. It's been called a lot of things, but now it's the Driver Development Center because we do a lot of things there as opposed to what we started when we first started the program. And today I got Jason Bolton with us. How you doing, Jason?
Doing well. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing? And I got Dollar Bill, right?
Yes, sir.
Tell everybody your real name in case they don't know you as Dollar Bill.
My real name's Gary Craighead, but most of the people knows me as Dollar Bill.
Most of the people throughout the company know you as Dollar Bill, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
You know, we're going to talk about the Driver Development Center a little bit today. And, you know, I think I don't even know how many years does it go back, Gary? Do you even know?
To the beginning is about 12 years.
12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard. You know, 12 years ago, I think, you know, we got this thing started and you were there by yourself and you were the only person that was doing it. And we kind of gave you a couple students and said, here, go figure out what we need to do, right?
Sure did.
And it's grown from what it was back then to what it is today. And I think we've proven that it's been very successful.
Yes.
You know, the reasoning that we did it back then was, you know, we were doing student drivers and we were looking at accident ratios and we were saying, hey, we need to do something to stop the backing accidents. And that's kind of how the thing got started. But it's really it's migrated now, right? Jason, what do you think about it now as opposed to there? We've changed a lot of stuff, right?
Absolutely. And the name says that. It's called a Driver Development Center now. Years ago, it was more called the Finishing School because we were using it for that. We were knee-deep in a student driving program. We were hiring drivers right out of a driving school, and that worked really well. And so the idea behind the program at that time was to kind of, let's polish them off. What do we have to do to help them become a great driver and put them in the position to win? As that program kind of waned down over the years, we really found other ways to use it. We're doing more things now. For example, return to work training. Every associate, you know, if you're out for a period of time, let's just say every driver and someone in a safety sensitive function, if you're out for a period of time and you come back to work, the last thing we want to do is just put you right in a truck and say good luck. So after a period of time, we want to bring you back and spend some time with you. And again, going back to that point of let's put you in the best position to win. What is it going to take to do that? And these folks have been instrumental with that. Helping our drivers with safety technology, doing meetings, the push that we've had on helping our drivers get their hazardous materials endorsement. That right there, they've been really instrumental with. So it's really grown over the years, and we continue to expect it to grow. We've got 4 locations. It's going to be 3 locations for 4 people that work there. So we've got Gary Craighead, ultimately Bruce Whitaker, Danny Woodall down in Decatur, and we've also got Dale Sanders up in Lexington. Collectively, these guys have been with us a long time. And Dale is the youngest one on the group, and he's had 20 years, and so you guys are all 40 years plus. So we've got a lot of experience with them, and we want them to have the opportunity to share that with their drivers.
And, you know, something I remember when we way back when, and we got into, hey, if a driver hadn't driven in a year, maybe.
Yes.
Whatever the numbers were, but if he hadn't driven a length of time, we decided to start bringing those drivers back and running them through the schools. And those drivers were a little different because they tell you at the beginning of it, they didn't really think they needed that, didn't they, Gary?
Absolutely.
You know, they'd driven maybe 20 years, but they hadn't driven in the past year or two. So we thought, well, come on in and just give you a little brush up. But they'd say, no, they didn't really need it, huh?
That's right, and it's everybody says it's kind of like riding a bicycle. Once that you've been on one, you know, if you get off, you get back on it and do it again. It's not necessarily that way because the people that comes back have been off for a while. Well, they really appreciate coming back, and they'll say, well, I'm glad we did this because we learned more coming back to you guys than we probably knew before we came in to start with.
Yeah. It really is. So it's been a real positive impact. The drivers, I think if you ask any driver that's been through the school over the past 12 years, I don't think you find a driver that's going to say, wow, I wish I hadn't spent these 3 or 4 days here. I think every one of them will say, wow, I got something out of those 3 or 4 days. So it's a great program. How do we use the program? Drivers, can a driver raise their hand, for instance, and say, hey, I think I need some help? and we do something there? Or what's the different instances right now when drivers can use the program?
Well, and you mentioned one. We have someone that hasn't driven in a while, and I might fall in that category. I haven't driven full time since the late 90s. I would need to go through this program, okay? Yeah. I keep my commercial driver's license, but I couldn't hop in a truck and drive, and so there's various reasons we do that. It might also be due to the kind of equipment that they drove coming into us. If you bring somebody in that maybe they worked in the timber industry and all they ever did is pull around logs, that's vastly different than pulling a 53-foot trailer. So again, going back to what we're saying, let's put our folks in a position to win. So those are some key points with that. But to go back to your initial question, can somebody throw their hand up and say, I need a little help? Sure, and we encourage it. That's what we're here for. And I think sometimes people are maybe they don't want to say something, maybe they're scared or with that. It's not necessarily going to have to be a big drawn-out affair. Might be just spend a day with you. It might be a couple of days. It really is designed around the individual's needs because we're all different. Every one of us are. And the thing that we can't do is try to put everybody into the same, box because everybody's driving experience is different. You mentioned the riding the bike scenario. That's a good analogy, but you've got to first learn how to ride the bike correctly before that can happen. And so with doing that, we can spend the time that they need to brush them up.
Let me ask you a question. I know way back when, we had different obstacles out there that we were trying to cope with. For instance, things set up to do a 180-degree back and a blindside back and all kinds of stuff. But I know you teach a lot of things. What do you teach now?
Basically, we just do 45s, but we start out with making sure that everybody does a pre-trip because that's 100% of everything that they need right off the bat. That's not only keeping them safe when they're on the road and cutting back on the cost out on the road versus what it would be if it was here, but the pre-trip is essential. And we just set up 90s, we set up 45s, we set up blindsides, we do parallel parking and just make sure that they've got all of it down pat. And if they don't, well, we can work on one particular thing more than we do the other. If they just have a problem, say, with a 90-degree backing or an alley backing or a blindside backing, we can just work on that at 100%. Just to make sure that they're good to go whenever they get back on the road or at the beginning.
All that's really important, the backing part of it and all that, and the pre-trip is vital, obviously, having a good pre-trip. And I know you also teach, map reading, as far as how to plan your trips out and stuff like that. But something I think is really important from a safety perspective, and I don't know that all the drivers understand it necessarily, is what the drivers talk about, all the bells and whistles, all the safety technology that we have on these vehicles and how important it is. Talk a little bit about the safety technology and how you teach that part of it.
Well, we try to go into every bit of it that's on the truck, every instrument that's on the truck and what it does. But some people think it's not on there, but when you see it from a perspective like that I've saw it since I've been in the safety department, everything that they put on the truck, they put it on there for a reason. It is for safety is what it's all about too. So as far as the collision part of it and the braking part of it and the lane departure and the stability control, we see all of that too now, but the driver just don't understand that is put on the truck for them.
Let me ask you a few more questions. I'm intrigued by all the things that you do teach, I guess. And, sometimes, you have problems when, if a thing has a front end collision alert and stuff, you need to override it. Y'all teach how to do that?
We do. We teach you how to override it. And if you're involved in something like that too, and just a little further into the technology, a lot of it's sent to Central to let them know that there's something with the truck. It's got so much technology on it that they'll get a message across their tablet or whatever for that too. So,
and Jason, you and I have heard over the years, drivers talking about, hey, the sounds are bothering me, and I think drivers get used to it though, and I don't know that they necessarily get used to it, or if they change their driving habits to where they don't hear the sound. What's your opinion on that?
A little bit of both.
Both?
There's two different situations right there. You can get desensitized to it because you might hear it more often, and that can come back to making sure that it's set up properly. The radar that's on the front of the truck, if it's going off, one of the key things I would tell everybody, if it's going off at times that it shouldn't be, if you're going underneath an overpass and it's going off there, if you're going around a curve, you need to get that to the shop and let somebody check on that, because what you don't want is to get desensitized to this alert that's not an alert, and then when you really, really need it, it's not there. So make sure you're communicating with your leadership. make sure you're communicating with preventive maintenance to make sure it's set up appropriately, because we want the equipment to work when it needs to, because it saves lives. It's proven. It's a
No
proven
doubt.
technology. Our accident rate is much, much lower now because of that. We don't have too many people call and go, hey, I almost had this accident. We don't get that.
Right.
But we can go back and we can look at the collision mitigations, and we can look at those things, and we can say, hey, that was avoided because of the system, and it works.
Well, I think we've known. We've looked at the stuff over the years, and we've noticed our high speed rear end collisions and relieving the roadway. A lot of that stuff has decreased dramatically.
Right.
And I think drivers get used getting used to it's not necessarily, but I think sometimes not in their mind, but they change how they're driving so they don't get the lane departure warning. And I think they do that. The subconscious tells them, "Hey, you got to move over so that thing won't make a noise on you." So I think eventually people start driving differently.
They do.
Which makes the noises go away. I think that happens a lot. Wouldn't you? You were a white line driver, right? When you drove,
I sure was. And
so it'd have been beeping all the time, right?
It would, and it did whenever I first started driving, because it went off all the time too. Because I had to learn how to stay in the center of the lane versus staying over to the right side of the lane all the time. And the technology that puts you in the center of the lane is just by far better to me, because that way if I get over on the shoulder or something, I might pick up a nail or something that, close to the white line.
Yeah.
It's just us old school drivers. It's hard to change your ways, but the technology, we got to go by what it says, and it's a lot better than it was the old school drivers.
Yeah, the old school drivers were all the white line driver,
That's
right?
it.
Get as close to the white line as you could and drive down that white line, right? So it changes a little. That's what I was getting at. That noise, eventually you figure out you know when you're driving, that noise goes away. So I think people get used to it some, but it's crazy how much it's also helped reduce accidents, right, Jason? You want to talk that just a minute talk about reduction of accidents and knowledge because of that?
It's proven since inception, and I don't have the number in front of me to dial back to that, but I know because I see it.
Yeah.
And we can go back and we look at, for example, those kind of accidents that you guys really train these folks on and how it's helped with that. And again, the positive reinforcement that we get back to them when they talk about how it's helped them, we look at their accident rate. So it's a plus. It truly is a driver development center, which is what we want to do. We want to develop them. We want them to get better, and we want them to come back. That's the other thing. I mean, it doesn't have to be a week-long event. There's a lot of reasons you may come there. Dr. Driver is certainly one. The entry-level driver training rules that came out a few years ago fell right into this, about how we use the course to train these folks for this. And they've been very successful. We just had the Department of Homeland Security at the Cookeville DDC here a few weeks ago, and they gave us a lot of accolades about how well we're doing. And so we're glad that the state of Tennessee is following up with that. So it's been very successful, and we expect it to continue to be so.
Over the years, I know you've had tons of people come back and tell you, hey, I'm glad I came, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it makes you feel good whenever they come back and they say, I've had to use something other that you showed me. And we don't, like we said, we don't all do the same thing every time. But whenever somebody comes back and says, hey, I used this certain thing that you showed me how to do, it makes you feel.
Makes you feel good, huh?
It does. It really does.
And, you help that person out. And I think that's when people really appreciate the opportunity to go, right?
They do.
That's what I thought. I think it's really big. I think it's a positive. When I talk to people out in the field, the people that have gone there and stuff, and always a positive influence, it seems like. So good stuff.
When people comes back too, if they've been out on maybe for some injury or something, or they return to work, when they come back after they've been back for a while, they don't just fall right back into it all at once. It may take them a day to get back involved in what their normal life was whenever they was driving. But once that they come back, they get into the second day and stuff. We just get stuff a little more advanced, a little tougher, for them to do and things. And whenever they get ready to leave, everybody always says, "Man, we're glad we came."
And part of that too is not just showing them how to drive around cones.
Right.
It's the personal connection that these folks give them. When you take somebody that's been out for 6 months, maybe they had an injury, they've been out for 6 months, that's a traumatic experience in its own right. And then they're coming back to work, being able to come to the DDC and work with these folks, and the personal connection you all give them, it makes them, in my opinion, it's a win-win. They're more valued. They feel that, and we've heard that from them. It's not just teaching them to maneuver better. It's teaching them, hey, you care, and I'm part of that.
Right.
And I think that's been a hugely successful thing.
Well, it's been a great program, that's for sure. I know you put in a lot of hours over there over the years. You were the only trainer when we first started, right? You were the first guy, and still standing, right?
Still standing strong.
Jason, any last words for everybody out there?
I just appreciate everybody. Thank you for what you're doing. We continue to be one of the premier carriers as far as safety, and we expect it to continue to grow with you. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. Gary, Dollar Bill, you got any last words for everybody out there? Any favorite words for your drivers?
Well, just tell everybody to be safe out there, and when they come to Cookville, come by and see me. I'd be glad to talk to you about anything. A lot of people's got my phone number, so please call me anytime that you need it.
That's good. And, we do appreciate the hard work you put in on that and making a very successful program for Averitt. We appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm just
Thank
glad
you
to
so
do
much. That's part of the process of taking people and making them an Averitt driver. And that's part of the process. Like when you're out there and you see somebody at a truck stop and you think, well, that's a sharp guy, and you go over and you talk to him, and you can talk about the Driver Development Center and talk about the things we do for our drivers. And those are things that not a lot of people do what we do. Nobody does exactly what we do in the Driver Development Center. People have tried to copy us over the years, but I don't think anybody's been successful at it. But that's one thing you can use when you go out there and you want to bring people to Averitt. We're going to need people at Averitt coming up in the next 6 months. Freight's going to start picking up. We're going to need to hire, and we're going to need people. You're going to need referrals. We're going to need them from you, and we need people like you. Use this as an opportunity to describe, hey, here's some things that sets Averitt apart and makes us different. But anyway, appreciate what y'all do. Thank y'all. See you out on the road.